Kia ora, and welcome to tonight's live stream, Meeting the Te Atatū electorate candidates. My name is Samuel Lever, and I'll be your host for tonight, as we question the candidates on their views of the Te Atatū electorate. It's important to remember that while the electorate is called Te Atatū, it includes the suburbs of Henderson and Ranui, with bits of Glendine, Massey, and Swanson. It is a large electorate. While many local issues are looked after by council, we believe that it's still important to have a candidate who can champion for the electorate. Tonight, we have candidates from Labour, National, TOP, and the NCP, New Conservative Party. New Zealand First and Greens were invited to tonight, however, they are not standing a candidate in this election. We also invited ACT candidate Simon Court, who unfortunately had to pull out at last minute for other reasons. So let's meet who we've got here tonight. First of all, we have the Labour candidate and three-term incumbent, Phil Twyford. Kia ora, Phil.
Kia ora, Samuel, and thanks to you and Josiah for organising this.
Oh, no worries. It's a pleasure to have you. Phil, just a little bit about yourself. So you are the incumbent for Te Atatū. You are fourth on the Labour list.
That's correct.
So pretty safe there. Yeah, you must be feeling pretty confident about keeping your role in Parliament.
Yeah, well, it's nice that the party's shown their confidence in me by giving me that list ranking.
Absolutely. And so you currently are the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Economic Development, and the Minister of Urban Development. That's correct?
That's correct.
That's awesome. So three pretty big roles. What are you currently working on?
Well, it's the end of the three-year term in government, so there are a lot of things that have been coming to a conclusion, work that's been underway for the last couple of years. One of the things that I'm really excited about is a new industry policy for government that really has government working with industry to grow jobs and industries in areas like digital technology, agricultural technology, and advanced manufacturing. And it's really about trying to grow New Zealand's ability to generate wealth, to grow large firms that can export and make New Zealand the kind of prosperous country that we want it to be.
Awesome. So I've just got a few icebreaker questions for you, Phil, and I'll be asking all the candidates these questions. What's your favourite band or singer?
Well, I'd have to say Bruce Springsteen. I've been listening to him since I was about 14, and he still rocks.
He does. He's good. Nice. All right. Favourite restaurant in the electorate?
Well, you really should treat all your children equally. But if you've really forced me to choose, I would have to say that just across the road from my electorate office in Railside Ave in Henderson, there's a little Malaysian family-run restaurant called Treasure Kitchen. And it's a fantastic place, and I go there whenever I can.
Awesome. I have to give it a go. Bit of an odd one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
I would say Star Trek.
Okay, that's cool. Now I'm going to take you out to dinner. You can invite 3 extra people, alive or dead. Who would you take?
First one would be Thomas Cromwell, who was one of the most amazing people of the 1500s in the UK. He was the kind of right-hand man of Henry VIII, and actually over a period of his lifetime, he really shaped modern government and politics. The second one would be Tupaia, who was the Tahitian warrior priest who accompanied Captain James Cook on his voyages around New Zealand. And was an interpreter, both cultural and language interpreter, and an extraordinary person. And the third one would be Billie Holiday, who was, for my money, one of the greatest jazz singers of the 20th century.
Awesome. It's quite a wide range of people that you would take to dinner. I think it would be a really interesting dinner party. Hey, thank you, Phil. We're going to move on to our next candidate now. And our next candidate is the national candidate, Alfred Ngaro. Kia ora ana, Alfred.
Kia ora, Samuel, and kia ora also to Josiah. And again, thank you for putting this on tonight, actually. You guys are the first cab off the rank, and well done.
Oh, thank you for being here. I know it was really hard trying to align everyone's diary, so I do appreciate everyone being here tonight. Now, Alfred, you are at list number 30 this year with National. With current polling, the only poll that counts is on October 17th, right? But bit of concern there.
No, when I first came in, and I was fortunate in 2011 to come in, I was actually 37 at that time. And so my job has always been to work hard and work smart. That's part of what it means to be a Westie. You don't worry about where you sit on the list in one sense, because like you said, Samuel, it's the poll on election night and even afterwards when you count the specials that really count. So, to me, that doesn't change anything. I'm still going to go out there and do what I've always done, which is to work hard to prove myself to the people.
That's awesome. Cool. So now, Alfred, you are 3 terms. Yeah, you've been in Parliament for 3 terms now. You were the minister and are now the spokesperson for the Paseka peoples.
Correct.
And for community and volunteer sector. Is that correct?
Yep, and the disability sector as well, and also for children. So there's 4 portfolios that I currently hold. Yeah.
That must keep you busy.
Yeah, and each one of them has their own special component to it. But look, I feel very blessed and thankful just to be able to serve our communities, and it doesn't matter whether you're in government or in opposition. I've always believed that our role is to serve our people, and so just honoured to be given that opportunity.
Awesome. Excuse me. All right, mate. Same questions. What's your favourite band, or who's your favourite band or singer?
Yeah, so my favourite band is Herbs. I grew up listening to them, but I grew up listening to reggae, country, so it's pretty eclectic.
Awesome.
But I love about Herbs is that they're homegrown, they're indigenous, they're iconic. They've had great duets, whether we with Dave Dobbin and others. And they're both activists in the sense of wanting to speak out things that are important to our community and to our country. So, yeah, so Herbs.
Awesome. Yeah, great band. Favorite restaurant in the electorate?
Well, there's many, but the one that I choose, if I was to take someone, like if I was to say, Samuel, you and Josiah, I'm going to take you guys out for a special meal, it'd be Te Atatū. Murray and Teresa, who run Atatū just on the peninsula there, right next to Harvey's, across the road from the Reds Barbers and Mr. Illingsworth. They just do a great meal. It's well priced. It's very tasty and never disappointed.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Their Italian dishes are amazing. Cool, man. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. I can remember as a kid growing up, actually one of the first movies I watched was going to the first Star Wars. And so, yeah, CP3O, it was Han Solo, all of those guys are just, it's one of those things you grew up as a young kid. And so Star Wars.
Awesome. Same deal. I'll take you out to dinner to Atatū, and you can invite 3 people, alive or dead, because I have those powers. Who do you invite?
Well, first of all, I'd start off with Sister Rosa Parks. A lot of people don't know her. People know Martin Luther King Jr. This is the time of segregation in the United States. The reasons why Sister Rosa Parks, she actually started the movement. She was a cleaner like my mother, and after a 12-hour shift, she was catching a bus. And the rules, basically, blacks had to sit at the back of the bus. That night, she said, not tonight. And she began the movement of resistance, which saw the end of segregation inside the United States at that time. And so I'd love to go out and just sit and hear her stories, really. A very humble, very simple woman. The second person would be Albert Einstein. The reasons why is that part of my family is Jewish, but I just love the fact is that his intelligence, and whether it's about the theory of relativity, but more importantly, he's got a broad scope. And I think people maybe miss the other parts of Albert Einstein. He was a very strong family man. So he understood how to connect communities, science, and the whole thing around academia and thinking to a very pragmatic level. And so he's, and then the last person would be Sapara Ngata. The reasons why is that, when I've been in politics, and in 2011, my office was right opposite the Māori Legislative Chamber, and sort of seeing his picture, reading the stories about him and what he led in the movement, not only for Māori, but actually for whole of New Zealand. And one of the iconic statements that he made is that we encourage that Māori need to pay the price to citizenship so that they could have the right to their voice in the nation, was what actually led to the Māori Pioneer Battalion originally. And then, of course, we had the Māori Battalion in the Second World War as well. So, yep, unfortunately, your powers are going to be stretched, all dead, but worthy of having a good meal.
Yeah. Oh no, that would be amazing. I really resonate. So one of my heroes is Martin Luther King, and actually Rosa Parks, Sister Rosa Parks, was actually, I've been to her memorial in Alabama. Been to the bus stop where she boarded that bus, and it's a pretty surreal experience. Yeah. Cool. All right. So thanks for that, Alfred. We're going to move on to our next candidates. So these two candidates are new to the political realm. Their parties aren't in government or parliament at this point, and so they're really fighting for their political career there. Just quickly before we go into that, I want to welcome to all our viewers. It's great to see you. Well, I can't see you, but you can see me. And also, hey, this is a really important message. So if you think it's important enough to watch, it's important enough to share, and I really encourage you guys to share it on your Facebook page there, please. Start a watch party. Let's get Te Atatū the right champion, or as many of these champions, into Parliament as possible. Right, moving on to our next candidates. I want to introduce the Opportunities Party, or TOP, Brendon's monk. Kia ora, Brendon.
Kia ora, and hi to everyone watching.
Cool. Now, Brendon, I was doing my research like a good little student, and I struggled a little bit. I couldn't find any list number. TOP hasn't released their list yet?
No, not yet.
No. Any expectations? Sort of go high, go low?
No expectations. I mean, my driver is firstly for TOP and getting good policy over the line. And secondly, it's not really about me, but if I can actually represent Te Atatū, I will. I know what I'm doing in the areas of housing and urban development. It's what I've been doing my whole career. It's what I've studied. It's what I work in. So I really believe in that. I know that we've got the answers. But around list, no, look, there's no decision made there. And I really don't know where that will be.
Cool. I'm sure we'll find out September 6th, I think the list is due. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Cool. So you did just mention you are the spokesperson for urban development and housing.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously Phil is the Minister of Urban Development. He's doing a good job, right? Yeah. I won't make you answer that. I won't make you answer that. Cool. So urban development and housing. Man, housing's a big topic. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. How did you get stuck with this portfolio?
Well, it was partly because I wanted it, and it's what I know. Going back nearly 2 years, I started thinking about writing policy for TOP, and so I'm one of the policy writers. And I wrote our policy on housing and urban development, and that was written oh gosh, the guts of that a year and a half ago in my spare time as a volunteer, along with help from a couple other people. And it was really through that and wanting to get the right message across that I decided to stand as a candidate. And I've always liked Te Atatū, and so it sort of made sense. Yeah.
Awesome. Te Atatū is a great place. Born and raised here. I speak from experience. Probably
just that houses are just too expensive.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Just for people that don't know, I am a mortgage broker. So if you want to buy a house, more than happy to help you. Anyway, my little plug. Let's move on. Icebreaker, Brendon. Who is your favorite brand? Your favorite band or singer? Sorry about that.
That's a really tough one, because probably like many people, I've grown up going through quite a range of music styles, listening to a range from heavy metal during my high school times to techno to all sorts. So if I had to pick one, it would probably be Moby. I don't know if you know who Moby is. Moby's American musician, does a lot of, quite a mix of DJ, also sings, plays pretty much all the instruments and all of the music that he does. Yeah, really talented guy, and puts across some pretty strong messages around, sustainability and the environment and all these sorts of things. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, favorite restaurant in the electorate?
Oh gosh, I'd say it would either be Mr. Illingsworth, the pub, or one of the cafes like Fuse. So actually, I'll pick Mr. Illingsworth. Good food, good drink, good location.
Cool. Yeah, Mr. Illingsworth, that beef burger, oh man, goes down the treat every time. Cool. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars, definitely, but probably only the original three. So episode, and
cool.
And out of those, it would be Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, right. That's up there. I'm a real sci-fi fan, and even though that's more adventure sort of stuff, it rates up there probably in the top 5 of all time for me. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's good. So same deal. I'm taking you and 3 friends to Mr. Illingsworth, alive or dead, doesn't matter. Who do you invite?
Ooh, I would say, in no particular order, Frank Lloyd Wright, who's famous American architect. He's dead now, but he's probably the most famous name in all world architecture. And not only was he a fantastic architect, he also had a pretty colourful life in many ways. So he's certainly a big fan of mine. Another one would be Jonah Lomu. Well, he needs no introduction, but he's
national hero. Yep.
Yeah, the sort of guy that every now and then you just got to get on YouTube and just look at his highlights and just still be blown away, And
yeah, absolutely.
Who would a third one be? Gosh, I would say Edmund Hillary. I mean,
another New Zealand icon.
Yeah. Again, very well known, but just people that would love to actually see what they were really like in real life. Yeah, real heroes.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Brendon. And we're going to move on to our last candidate, introducing Okusitino, who's standing for the New Conservative Party. Malawa lele, Okusitino.
Malole.
How are you?
Good, thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here, my friend. Now, Okusitino, you're going to have to ask the questions, because I did a bit of research and I couldn't find anything No list number yet, so that's okay. That's coming.
Still in the
But I couldn't.
process.
Yep, still in process. That's cool. But also, I couldn't see if you're a spokesperson for any particular portfolio. Do you hold a
I've
spokesperson?
been with the party for less than 2 months, so
Oh
still
wow.
days.
Okay, still early days. Cool. All right. Well then, let's change tack a little bit. And what's your passion? If you know, you got into Parliament and New Conservatives said, right, you can have any portfolio you want. What portfolio are you going to pick up?
Education, of course, considering my age and the issues I'm hearing around the constituents, especially the youth. Education, definitely.
Education. That's cool. That's cool. I'm actually an ex-teacher. I got out of teaching because we just don't pay them enough. Not to get into that, but now I'm a mortgage advisor. So no, education, that's awesome. Let's break the ice with you. So who is your favorite band or singer?
Probably Backstreet Brothers, or Boys.
Oh, okay, Boys. Yeah, okay, I know that one, Backstreet Boys. Cool.
Love it.
Favorite restaurant in the electorate?
Probably Asuka Japanese in Henderson. Yeah, it's very good. A rating, cheap,
Oh, yep.
a lot of spices.
A rating's always good, eh? Keep it down, sweet. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars, definitely.
Awesome. And 3 people you're going to take to Osaka?
Well, I'd say Sir Graham Henry. Yeah, being a young man passionate in rugby, I've always looked up to him. He's been through a lot himself, coming into, the All Blacks role, 2007, being defeated in the semi-final. Got a lot of criticism. He got back up, he kept going, and he made a comeback in 2011. And look at where he's at now. So, I look up to him big time. 2, I'll probably just give you 2. Probably Nolene Tauro. Yeah, again, another classic Kiwi, known in New Zealand. Made a huge, significant difference to the Silver Ferns. Coming into the role, took them out of the woods, and now they're champions. So, really good.
Awesome. And we can stick at 2. Nice cheap dinner. I like it. Easier on my wallet. No, awesome. Okusitino, it's great to have you here. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. As I mentioned, it's awesome having you here, and it's awesome having our viewers watching us and really caring about Te Atatū. So we're going to be asking questions tonight that I guess big topics nationwide, but what we really want to do is drill down on how they affect Te Atatū as the electorate. And viewers, please be aware, as I mentioned in my opening statements, even though I'm saying Te Atatū, I'm not talking about Tap North and Tap South. I'm talking about Te Atatū electorate, which expands out to Ranui and Henderson and parts of Swanson, Massey and Glendine. So it is a very large electorate there. So please be aware of that when I say Te Atatū.
Hey Samuel, not Massey or Glendine. That was under the old boundaries.
Oh, I only did my research today, but thank you for the update, Phil. That might someone needs to tell the Electorate Commission to update their maps then. But I do appreciate that. Cool. All right, so the first topic that I want to talk about, and it's something that's close to me, as I mentioned, being a mortgage advisor, I'm quite close to housing. I used to be a teacher. I become a mortgage advisor because I struggle getting into my own home. I met a mortgage broker who is now my boss, and it's widely accepted that housing is expensive. It's getting harder to achieve home ownership. Now we need to build more homes, and over the last 5 years, we have, particularly in Te Atatū, we've seen a lot more fill-in homes and rise of townhouses and apartments. It's great building up, not out. We really can't build out in the Te Atatū electorate. Te Atatū Peninsula is a peninsula, and everywhere else is pretty full. So my first question, or questions for you guys, is what do you see for the Te Atatū electorate? Obviously, we can't build out. Their land's taken, so we have to increase intensity. Is it townhouses or apartments? And how high do we go? And the second part of the question is, how do we make it affordable? Now, viewers, I have asked our candidates to keep their answers to under a minute. That might be a little bit hard, and I might have to nudge them along when we get a chance. I understand a minute is short, but we don't want to be here all night. So candidates, in about a minute and a half, I'll be generous. Are we building townhouses or apartments, and how high are we going? And how do we make affordable housing, and how much is affordable? Phil, I'm going to come to you first.
Hey, thanks, Samuel. There's no doubt that housing our people in warm, dry, affordable housing is probably one of the most important things that we could do. And our country hasn't done very well over quite a long period of time, actually, in providing decent, affordable housing. I think everyone who follows politics will be familiar with some of the struggles that I had in the early months of the government with our Kiwi Build policy. But you know, we as a party and I as a minister, we've never backed away from a commitment to tackle the housing crisis. As housing minister in that first year, I stopped National's sell-off of state housing and instituted what has become the biggest government house building program since the 1970s. We have modernised the tenancy laws to give renters more security of tenure, including so that people can't have their tenancies terminated with no reason provided. And that's really important because a third of Kiwis these days are renters. And if you're raising a family, as many of our people in West Auckland are, as renters, that's a terrible level of insecurity to live with. The other day in Ranui, I opened a new Kainga Ora state housing development. 9 beautiful, warm, dry, double glazed, insulated and roomy homes, 3-bedroom homes, on land that a year ago was home to 3 cold, drafty old state houses from the 1970s. And that's part of a massive building program that you can see that our government's doing all over West Auckland and in fact all over New Zealand. We've built 3,500 emergency housing places to house the homeless. And in fact, under COVID-19, we have eliminated and demonstrated that it's possible to pretty much eliminate rough sleeping, people who are long-term chronic homeless. And we've supported the work of wonderful West Auckland organisations like Vision West, who through the Housing First program have been incredibly successful at housing the long-term homeless. As Urban Development Minister, I freed up the planning rules under the RMA to allow much more of the density that you talked about in your introduction. We've got to allow our cities to grow and grow up and make room for growth instead of the planning system constantly stopping our cities from growing. And actually, we haven't forgotten Kiwi Build either. And right now in this electorate, in this community, there are 48 new 1 and 2 bedroom Kiwi Build apartments on sale in Henderson that will be built over the next year in Buscombe Ave. Another 23 homes in the Cherry Lane development in Henderson. Those are 3-bedroom homes for $636,000. So even in West Auckland, which for a long time has been more affordable than other places, that is that's pretty good going. So
sorry, Phil. Sorry to interrupt you there. What were those prices for those homes?
So the 48 1 and 2 bedroom apartments are priced between $450,000 and $560,000.
Okay,
and the 3-bedroom homes are $636,000.
Okay, cool. So I just want to reiterate that. So the second part of the question was what is affordable, and you're happy with that price? That is affordable.
Yeah, so we think about in Auckland that the median price is now $1 million for a home in Auckland. So that's way, way under the median. And it's not affordable for someone who is living on a job seeker's benefit. or for someone who's earning the minimum wage. We haven't got there yet. But for those people, we need to do other things like build more affordable housing, build more affordable rentals, assisted home ownership programs, and public housing. But if you're a couple of people on a start out professional income or middle income, if you've got a household income of say $70,000 a year, you could get into one of those properties.
All right, awesome. No, thank you for that, Phil. We're going to move to Brendon from top, mainly because you are the spokesman for housing. So I'm keen to get your thoughts on this as well. So those questions are we building townhouses or apartments? How high do we go? And how much is affordable?
Well, to answer the first part, townhouses or apartments, that's really going to be a little bit case by case, depending on where. Now, what I'd like to see and what Top would like to see is definitely more intensive development. But we got to first actually lay the ground structure for proper public transport. Once we've actually got that in and got a design for that, and not just the main sort of trunk line through up, west, but out to the peninsula and also down, Te Atatū South and Lincoln Road. And once we've got something like that, then I would like to see much more intensive development around those, particularly around any of the transport hubs. So, I mean, just out on the peninsula, for example, imagine if you had a nice tram line that ran down around, say, Beach Road, up Wharf Road, then back along Te Atatū Road to the heart there. All of that area would be prime for real intensive development around that loop. So it's not just out on the edges where people are building big McMansions, but in the heart of these areas, that's where we really want to start building up. And there's no reason, ground conditions permitting, go up to sort of 4 or 5 stories. That's how you get enough people living in these areas. That's how you get a real heart to your community. Now, in terms of affordability, what we're not seeing from the government at the moment, or the previous government or the one before that, is addressing the real core issue here that is driving us to have the most unaffordable housing in the world, and that is our tax system. At the moment, our tax system, the technical name for the New Zealand tax system is Giant Property Pyramid Scheme. There's a great big disparity between the way we tax housing, investment in housing, and how we tax other investments. It's forcing us all to pour all our money into property. And that is driving up prices way out of whack. And until we deal with that, everything else really is pissing in the wind in terms of trying to obtain affordable housing. Now, sure, you can stick up a couple of dozen Kiwi-built homes somewhere, but that is just a drop in the ocean of what needs to be done. We need to we've got to deal with our land prices. We've got to deal with the core issue.
Yeah, sure. And I think you raise a valid point that, we do have this tax hole in property. And I've read Top's policy on property tax. Now, as a property owner, do I want it? I don't know how I feel about tax, right? But I think you're valid. But, I think Kiwi Build is a drop in the bucket, but it's a start, isn't it? Should we not? We should say thanks to the government for starting that process, right?
Yeah, probably not so much Kiwi Build on its own. Movements around what's happening with Kāinga Ora is good, and I commend the government on that, and Phil. What we would like to see in terms of getting real affordability is even more partnering with local non-government organisations, community groups, things like that, who actually want to own and develop good community social housing developments that are actually create a real mix of people and age groups, all these sorts of things in these sorts of developments. Now, there are some mechanisms in place that have sort of happened over the last year that would allow that to happen in terms of land acquisition, but we need to partner more with these groups to really listen to them, listen to the people. The communities tend to know what they need. We need to give them the mechanisms to actually achieve it. And that's the sort of housing developments we want to see. Yeah.
No, that sounds great, and it's everything starts with a plan. So, awesome that Top has a plan, and
different ownership models. We would like to explore, co-housing. We'd like to use what iwi know about Papakainga developments. I mean, that is very closely related to how co-housing works. We could establish a real model for New Zealand here. That's what we want to do.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Alfred from National. Now, Alfred, a lot of heat goes on to National for the previous government and how they sort of let housing, or some would explain it as a bubble, to grow over the 9 years that National were in power. How do you see that affecting Te Atatū? And of course, the same questions. Are we building townhouses? Are we building apartments? And how much is affordable? What is an affordable price for a first home buyer?
So first of all, your first part of the question, Samuel, it's the combination of both townhouses, I think, and apartments, and it's already here. Under the unitary plan, you'll see in a whole lot of parts of, whether it's in the peninsula and Te Atatū itself. So our main arterials, in other words, our main roads, are already designated under the Auckland unitary plan for infill housing, and that's already happening. In fact, I'm on the peninsula here. It's in my neighbourhood all around the place. There's three things to the cost of a home and a house in an area: the cost of the build, the cost of the regulations around it, and the cost of the land. Now, we know that in Auckland alone, the cost of the land is, phenomenal. And part of that is that when Michael Bassett wrote a report which talked about the affordability of housing, the urban city limits that were drawn, these were arbitrary sort of lines that were written around the city. And we said, so this is the city lines, the city borders, and that actually increased the house prices, the land price, the price of land, phenomenally. That was taken parts of that have already been taken away. So that starts to slowly reduce the cost of that. And you'll see that further out, and you'll know this, Samuel, in your line of work, that the cost of land further out from Auckland, whether it's in parts of South Auckland, heading down to Pōkeno and other places like that, are slightly cheaper. But the other part, which a lot of people, no one's mentioned now, and that's the repeal of the RMA, the cost of regulation and consenting. I come from the other part of the sector, so I was an electrician by trade, was heavily involved in the construction sector. I understand and know what it means in that area of both development, the practical outworkings of what it means to both construct, build, and deliver houses with codes of compliance. The consenting process has always been the biggest issue. Now, we've got to be clear. National has made it clear that if it gets into government, it will actually repeal the RMA. It'll put it into two parts. One part will be building and construction and infrastructure, and another piece of legislation that will be particularly around the environment. So we don't want to negate our responsibilities, but at the moment, it's just taking far too long, costing far too much to be able to get it. Consenting at the moment can take up to 12 to 14 months just before you then start to turn the sod. That's just too difficult, costing too much for us as well. The other thing around affordability, I think, so, Phil made the statement that the great state sell-off, and actually what we were doing, we set up the community housing sector and community housing providers, and what we did is that we devolved that stock into those providers, and roles that government couldn't take. Things like, for instance, you've got Habitat for Humanity, Salvation Army, Tāmaki Regeneration, which is out in Auckland, for instance. They took on the role, and what they can provide in regards to affordability for people is like shared equity schemes as well. And what we have planned to do, that if we become the government come the election, is that we want to invest another $1 billion of capital investment into the community housing providers. These are providers that provide social service, but at the same time too, they're skilled set and they understand what it means to provide affordable home packages around that in particular, and especially around shared equity schemes, which we want to back and we want to support as well. You know, one of the things that you learn in public office, and both Phil and I have learned this, is that, you know, you got to be careful to make promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. Kiwi Build was a massive promise, 100,000 houses. The truth and the reality of it couldn't be done, right? And so while it may be a great idea, the reality, you've got to get back to some realities and some practicalities of what can and should be done. And what we did and what we've done in National is that, you know, unless we can deal with these issues around the cost of consenting, that's your regulation, the cost of what it means to actually build the house itself. At the moment, on average in New Zealand, it's about, and we cost it out at per square meter. You know, in New Zealand, it's been between 2,400, 3,200 per square meter. You go to Australia, it's about 1,200. So to get that costing down, right, so that it's more affordable right across the board, you've got to do those things, which is the cost of regulation, the cost of the build, and the cost of the land. And that's been our commitment. And we've proven ourselves that we've been able to achieve that in our time.
Yeah, cool. Alfred, awesome. Sorry, I was stuck in a rock and a hard place because I wanted to stop you just from that time limit, but I think you raised a really valid point, which is the cost of building houses. I'm constantly surprised at, you know, houses that I'm helping clients into, and they're going, oh, why does it cost so much? And really, you look at the build of it, you know, sure, developers are taking a cut, but you look at actually how much it costs to actually erect that home, from council consents and digging, right through to the actual construction of it. And I think that is a real problem there. So I did want to let you finish there. So thank you for that, Phil. Moving along, Okusitino from NCP. Same questions to you. Consents and digging. Someone's got a little bit of feedback there. And I think that is a real problem there. So I did want to let you. Right, Okusitino, so I think you've got a bit of feedback there, bud. So you might be watching the stream, or someone around you's watching the stream. If you can get them to mute that and then unmute yourself. All right, you there?
Awesome.
Cool, man. So yeah, so same questions.
Yep. So I think the first thing to do is acknowledge the work that has been done and is currently underway by the current government. Yes, there are promises that are made. Totally agree with Alfred. Yes, sometime, you know, a wish list can't become, you know, an actual a plan. So, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to unity. Let's work together, leave our differences aside, come together to achieve that goal. You see, New Conservative recognizes that the housing availability, affordability, and you know, quality all need to be addressed on multiple fronts. You see, there's no simple solution to this critical area, and we need a number of initiatives. You see, our primary focus is on these 5, you know, key areas in which we've identified. 1, supply management. You see, we will address the shortfall in housing supply in various fronts, including 1, Resource Management Act and local government reform. 2, timeframes for, you know, undeveloped land to prevent pure land banking. 3, improve and sustainable regional growth. 4, pre-consistent plans. 5, review the taxation levies. You see, demand management. We will find initiative ways to manage the demand on housing. You see, such as initiatives to help New Zealand families into their own homes. The New Conservative Party, you know, would look at the use of levies like tax initiatives, KiwiSaver changes, if so, rent then buy schemes, shared equity, introduce stamp on duty property purchases, which I think is very important by non-citizens, and the third, and any subsequent purchases by local investors. and cost factors, of course. The cost is creating, one of the single biggest hurdles to home ownership. You see, New Conservative will seek to change regulations to allow more prefabrication, if you like. We also encourage and develop greater efficiency in property markets, if you like, and remove unnecessary regulation and compliance costs. Shortfalls, we will introduce training at year 9 to give young people, opportunity to, and I witnessed this myself, opportunity to choose a trade as a career path during their education. They will be qualified sooner rather than later, and it will, help keep them in education system at the same time. There needs to be, a defined focus on encouraging the trades as a positive career choice with good financial outcomes at the same time. And like I said, I took from experience as a youth, and I've seen it at the forefront, and I've seen it work at the same time. So kids who, drop early out of school and into trades, I've seen them just build from that. Building regulations, of course, many areas can be addressed here, such as better standards regulation. What else is there? More use of public private partnerships, allowing materials certified in Western developed nations to be used, say, additional certification. And lastly, streamlining the trademark processes, to allow competition, I think is very important as well.
Awesome. Hey, Okusitino, thank you for that. From what I got from that is I think you guys have obviously really thought about the housing issues, and obviously there's parts that you agree from both sides of the house from what you said. Repeating what Phil said, repeating what Alfred said, and what Brendon said. So sounds like you've got a really robust policy there, and I look forward to reading it once it's out there. So we're going to move on to our next question. So of course, with the increased housing comes increased transport issues, increased population. The Te Atatū electorate has 2 of the busiest on-ramps in Auckland. Over 38,000 cars use Te Atatū on-ramp every day, and another 38,000 use Lincoln Road on-ramp every day. And I sit in the Lincoln Road on-ramp for far too long. What does transport look like in the future? Do we have light rail? I'm looking at you here, Phil. Do we have a dedicated bus lane? So I'm looking at you, Alfred. What is going on with transport? Why does it take me an hour if I catch the train from Ranui to town? Why does that take me an hour? Or why does it take me 45 minutes to get onto the motorway from Lincoln Road? What are we doing here? What is the plan for transport? Alfred, I'm going to let you go first on this one. What is the plan for transport?
Thank you, Samuel. Well, when I've surveyed the electorate, the number one issue that comes up is transport. So first of all, if we're talking about the main arterial and we're talking about the northwestern ring route, it was national that actually, first of all, if you think about the 2 interchanges, that was at a cost of about $28 million for both the Te Atatū and the Lincoln Road interchange. We developed that, we improved it, we widened it, and made it far more efficient to what it is now. Unfortunately, you're still waiting, but it's a lot better than what it was. The second thing is that we widened basically the whole causeway. You'll know that because it took about 3 years of the development, another 2.5 years of the planning. That takes you down to 5 lanes when you go past Rosebank Road and then Waterview Tunnel. That's increased the travel time for those of us that are heading from either up at Westgate all the way through to the causeway and into town. That's decreased that travel time by at least 25 minutes. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we've promised that we would do in that regards is around the Northwestern Rapid Transport Bus Corridor. And so we actually planned in 2017. We had the costing around that. It was around about $2.3 billion. And we had a plan in place. Obviously, AT was trying to champion it. NZTA went with what it is now. we've made a commitment now that actually what will look like in the future is that we need to have a dedicated, not bus lane, but bus way. And we've committed ourselves to be able to do that. That's really important as well. The other parts of it is just also too in the rail. Under National, we electrified the whole rail corridor right the way through into the city because we know that's improved. The last part of that needs to complete, and we've again made an announcement, would do that. When you get up to Swanson, that's where electrification stops. People then heading up further up to Haupai. We've now committed that we're going to actually have a shuttle that goes, which is a diesel shuttle that gets people all the way up at Haupai, over down through to Swanson, and then they can transition over. So that completes the accessibility of that. So for us, it's the transport corridor that's there. It's important. It's the bus way, not a bus lane. And it's not just going to be $50 million of trying to improve a lane. They'll make it a little bit better. We want to dedicate that all the way through down into the city centre as well.
So you're telling me, Alfred, that if you're successful in October, when can I jump on a bus on Lincoln Road and get to town in 10 minutes? When can I do that?
Well, you can do it now, and it'll take you, if you get in there early.
Not going to take me 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know that because my son used to catch it, and it used to take him 20 minutes. If he got it at 6:30, he said, Dad, if you catch it any later, it can take you up to 35, 40 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that bus corridor that we've promised is that we're already doing the work on that. By 23, the sods will start turning, and it won't take long to develop that and to make that work as well. So, for us, we make an announcement, we make a plan, we cost it, and we just get on and do it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Alfred. Nice and brief on that one. Thanks for keeping it nice and brief. I'm going to go to Phil on this one because I was really looking forward to catching a tram from northwest to town. I believe that's been put on the back burner. So what's the plan here, Phil? How are you going to get me around my city?
Thanks, Samuel. And I'm really pleased that the National Party have embraced the idea of rapid transit alongside State Highway 16. But Alfred, I wish that when you had 9 years in government and you widened the causeway and did the Western Ring route widening, I wish that you had built the busway alongside the Northwestern Motorway then.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It was a terrible, terrible decision. And everybody was telling the government then, build the busway now, build it once and build it right. And
North Shore got theirs, right? And here we are out west still waiting.
It did. And we need rapid transit on State Highway 16. It's the single most important transport issue facing West Auckland because that congestion spills back onto the arterials and into our neighbourhoods. So
Sorry, Phil. I just want to hold that because I'm just checking my notes. You are the Minister of Transport.
Apparently so.
Of Te Atatū, and you just said this is the single most important issue
facing West Auckland. It's the biggest transport.
Okay, facing West Auckland. Okay, that's cool. I'll let you off that one.
So we're doing the planning and the preparatory work now for rapid transit alongside the Northwestern Motorway that would get you on. My preference is for it to be light rail, but the other possibility is it could be a dedicated busway. It needs to go from the city centre with interchanges at Te Atatū, Lincoln, Royal Road, Westgate, and up into the northwestern growth area to Kumu and Huapai.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's got to happen. And we are working on light rail now. And but in the meantime, I recently secured $100 million for bus upgrades on the Northwest Motorway with interchanges at Te Atatū and Lincoln that will allow more frequent, more reliable and more rapid bus journeys. And what that means is plus 10 extra kilometres of dedicated shoulder lanes from Waterview into the city. That will take 10 minutes off the bus ride from Te Atatū into the city, 20 minutes from Lincoln into the city. It will reduce the commute. It will allow express buses on the motorway in those dedicated shoulder lanes with feeder services on Te Atatū Road, Te Atatū Peninsula, Te Atatū South, Lincoln Road, and at Westgate. So that's a down payment. And actually, it will deliver for the people of Te Atatū much of the benefit of rapid transit straight away by doing.
Okay.
By making
And when are we getting this, Phil? When are we getting this?
Construction will start next year because it's funded through the shovel-ready infrastructure program that's part of our program to boost jobs as part of the COVID recovery.
Awesome. I look forward to jumping on a monorail. I really like Melbourne, so let's stick with monorails. No, you do what's best, what you think's best. Okusitino, again, jumping onto New Conservative site. Couldn't see any policy around public transport. What's the go here? How are you going to get me around my city?
Oh, look, let's keep it nice and simple. I couldn't agree more with what Alfred said. Look, from my perspective, simple solution, we've got to invest more into transport. We've got to have a plan. And I think what Alfred's expressed today, in regards to what National's planned out, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Okay, so you're going for the National, the busway, dedicated busway
yep,
for...
absolutely.
Yep, cool. No, that's awesome. And Brendon, TOP's policy, I know TOP is really friendly with public transport, and you've already mentioned it in your housing statement. So what's the plan for the Te Atatū electorate? What are you going to do?
Oh, well, our plan would be a lot more long-term thinking and a lot bigger. Phil, you mentioned securing $100 million for a busway. That is nothing. What we need is billions.
It's a start. It's a start.
Well, TOP have a plan for real serious infrastructure funding, and we want to link the infrastructure funding for each region to the amount of development going on in that region. I.e., for Auckland, take the overall cost of the building work that's going on, allow the councils to claim back the GST component of that. So for Auckland, we're talking in the order of $1.5 billion a year extra funding moving forward, and that is every year. For the next 30 years, whatever it takes. When you've got that sort of money coming in, and the return investment, if it's spent on the right sort of things, will virtually pay for itself. So what we would do with the massive funding we know we can come up with is definitely light rail down State Highway 16. Wouldn't be mucking around with buses except if it was in the short term, but definitely rail. And then would also have feeders onto those interchanges from the peninsula, from the south, from Lincoln Road, that would be, modern, quiet, clean tram systems. And incorporating in with that, because we're talking about, the real big picture here is sustainability. And so what we also want to see is a lot more kind of mixed mode transport systems, a lot more cycling, walking, scooters, all that sort of stuff. So really incorporate that in right throughout the whole of Te Atatū electorate. We know how to do it, and the sort of public transport people really like to use is that nice, clean, quiet stuff. Buses are good, but they aren't great. It's rail and it's trams, things like that. That's the real long-term thinking that we want to achieve.
No, I have to agree there, Brendon. I mean, we're going to be living in a world, especially with COVID, we're all working from home now, unless you're a mortgage manager that I drive out to my clients. But if I can take that public transport, if I can work quietly in the train or something like that, I think you're absolutely right. We need that quiet stuff. By the sounds of it, you're not going with the national policy. You want to stay away from buses. Unless it's in the short term.
It's not that we want to stay away from it. Buses will always have their place, but when we're talking about the main arterial routes and main feeder lines, that it's the rail and the trams. That's what creates the sort of urban environments that we want to have. They're clean and quiet, and with trams can run down on the street in amongst cars as well. And amongst cycling, we know how to do it. That's the sort of environment we want for Te Atatū.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brendon. All right, moving on to our next issue. Te Atatū electorate sits in the Waitemata Police Precinct, which also is the headquarters of the Waitemata Precinct at Henderson Police Station. They tragically suffered a loss of one of their officers in June. What can we do to make their job safer? And there has been a discussion about, is it time to arm the police officers? Should we be arming them, or are tasers enough? What's the plan for police moving forward? We're going to start with the minor parties on this one. Okusitino, what's New Conservatives' policy around police? What are we doing with them?
Yeah, so we do believe that should be the case. I mean, like you said, really unfortunate circumstance that we have just seen in the past few months. So I think that's the way forward, is to have and allow police to have a source of protection for themselves at all times. So I think that's the way forward, and it's pretty simple.
So just so that I'm clear, you for arming them, you want to arm them, you want to protect them.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Okusitino. Brendon, TOP's policy, I couldn't see anything around the police force. What's TOP's thinking here? What are we doing with them?
Well, in terms of arming police, I mean, I don't think there's evidence overseas or anywhere that arming police creates safer communities. What we really need to do is look at what the underlying issues are in our communities. And, we know that probably in a lot of West Auckland, that there is probably a disproportionate amount of youth crime. And that's really just to do with it's poverty, it's, inequality of opportunity and things like that. These are the sort of things we need to address.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Brendon, sorry. Yeah. If we can keep it around that police there, I understand that they're dealing with a lot on their plate. I absolutely get it. As an ex-teacher, I get it. Mates as cops,
yeah.
I get it. Can we keep it around the cops there?
Yeah, with the police, look, we would listen to the experts, what they really want to say. Listen to the police. I just don't think that there's evidence to show that actually arming police is going to create a safer community for them to work in. But look, sure. we would sit down and actually talk to the police themselves. Yeah, absolutely.
So dealing with the greater issues there, which I think is hitting the nail on the head there. We're just trying to want to keep it out there. So not arming the police, which is good, but trying to get into the community and help them that way. I think that's a really honourable answer there, Brendon. So thanks for that. Alfred, I'm going to come to you, mate. What are we doing for the police? How do we keep them safe? Is it time to arm them?
Yeah, look, it's a tragedy that Matthew Hunt was killed just up at Massey, and it was just a routine stop in the middle of the morning. That should have happened. The truth is that police are already armed. In the back of the iCars, they're access there. I've actually travelled with the iCars. I've been out in some of the most difficult situations with those guys at the front line. It's incredibly challenging with that. And I think the fact is that the challenges that we've had, we've now got victims. We've got people that are now methamphetamine has created an incredibly dangerous situation for our police at the front line. So I think the fact is that at the moment, our response is that no. But what we have to do is be very open as to how do we then better equip them to be able to assess risk assessments. But, the truth is, Samuel, that was just a routine stop in the middle of the morning, around about 10:30. You'd never expect that to happen, but it did. And I think the fact is that we've got to be cognizant now. We've got to both protect our community and our police. So at this stage, I think the fact is that they are already armed. They've got access to firearms in their vehicles. They're locked up. I think the thing is that do we make it so that actually, if the risk factors are that actually they need to then basically arm prior to something like that, then I think we've got to be open to that.
Cool. Thanks, Alfred. Yeah, nice clear there. So not just yet, or police do have access in these times. I think you're right. Nothing could have stopped this unfortunate event at this time. It was totally out of the blue, which is cool. Phil, I'll give you the last remarks on this. What are we doing for police? Or what is Labour doing for the police? What are we doing to keep them safe? Is it time to arm them?
So we've got to work harder and smarter to tackle not only crime but the causes of crime. And if you look at our record, you'll see that's what our approach is. So under our government, 2,000 frontline officers have graduated in the last 3 years. We now have the biggest and the most diverse police force in New Zealand's history. We banned military-style semi-automatic weapons within days of the March 15 Christchurch Mosque shootings. We've given big boosts in funding to anti-violence services, including to groups like Man Alive in West Auckland, who deal with the perpetrators of violence, not just the victims and survivors. We've reclassified synthetic drugs to make them Class A drugs to get them off the street, and so we can crack down on dealers and manufacturers, while actually making it easier for health authorities to work with people who are suffering addictions and need health services. We've made the West Auckland Drug Court and the other drug courts around the country permanent and given them ongoing funding. We're tackling the overrepresentation of Māori in prisons by tackling recidivism, and so people don't go back to prison. Look, I'm as a local MP, I'm a really big supporter of our cops in West Auckland. They work incredibly hard in West Auckland. They really earn their money to keep us safe on the streets. And just to give you an indication of how I do that, a few months ago, I hosted a meeting in my electorate office of local businesses and social service agencies and local government politicians to talk about the problem with the cops in the room, the problem of begging and antisocial behaviour in Henderson, which has been driving residents and local businesses crazy. The police were there.
Yeah.
It was a constructive discussion. And since then, the police have led a community-based process working with all of those groups to have a plan that they can implement with the community to deal with homelessness and antisocial behaviour. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. Now, I may have missed it, and I apologise if I did, but is it time to arm the police or not? I didn't hear your answer there.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not. The police in New Zealand are armed when they need to be, but routinely arming them would not be a positive step. It would take us down the road towards the kind of situation the United States is dealing with right now.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Look, I'm being as unbiased as I can tonight, but it gives me faith in our parties that we all want to deal with the underlying issues here. So kudos to you all. Right, moving on to the next one, and I'm hoping that our viewers are really actually getting an understanding on how important the Te Atatū electorate is, being the headquarters for the police. We've got some of the busiest roads in Auckland. This next one, we have our own hospital. We have the Waitakere Hospital. It has 283 beds. And has recently moved to a 24-hour emergency department. The fact that it took this long to get a 24-hour emergency department is ridiculous, but thanks to the previous government for getting that across the line. However, the hospital I see is probably, with all respect to the staff there, not a productive hospital. They do conduct small surgeries, but anything that is required more than a day visit or anything that requires specialist care, you're sent to North Shore or Auckland or even Middlemore out south. It's a real strain on families when families are going through these surgeries. Considering the growth that we've had and that we're going to have, is it enough? Or is it time that Waitakere Hospital gets some serious investment and actually becomes a proper hospital a place that I can go to and have a surgery if needed? Or am I going to continue to be sent north or south or all over Auckland for that? Brendon, I'm going to come to you on this one first. What is your thoughts on Waitakere Hospital?
Well, I think that really investing in a much bigger development there is really worthwhile. The region has got a lot of potential, the whole electorate, for a massive amount of extra population here. So, and it really comes down to funding. If the funding's there and TOP know how to get the funding for these sorts of things, then why not? The area deserves a much better hospital, much better access to healthcare for people. I mean, the problem we have right throughout New Zealand is in our cities and all urban areas, as it's becoming harder and harder to actually access good healthcare. And the problem is a lot of people, the poorer the people, the more they are getting pushed further and further away from the amenities and the healthcare they need. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But what we got to do is, when we can actually create good, proper urban developments and community hubs, we also have to have things like the right sort of healthcare.
Yeah.
Waitakere Hospital needs a big upgrade. And so that's what I would like to see.
And top would commit to that.
Yeah.
Going to get a world-class hospital in West Auckland. That's awesome. It's good to hear. It's good to hear. My, I've got, we've all got nanas and whatnot that need that healthcare. So thank you, Brendon. That's awesome. Alfred, remember a minute to a minute and a half. I know you've got plenty to say on this topic, because I saw your weekly Te Atatū update on Facebook. But give us your thoughts on Waitakere Hospital, a minute and a half.
So it's really simple. My campaign is to build a bigger, better hospital in Waitakere. It's a cottage hospital that's servicing the size of population to that of Wellington Central. So we have about a catchment area of 580,000 people. It's just not good enough. You're right, we can't have any acute services. We've either got to go out to Auckland Hospital or out to North Shore. So we deserve a bigger, better hospital. I've spoken to people, I've done the groundwork. I've spoken to the people in the board. I've spoken to the executives that are there. I've spoken to whether it be the nurses, all the other services, and even to people themselves. I've experienced it myself with my own mother going through there and not being able to have those acute services. West Auckland deserve a bigger, better hospital. There's already a report that's been called the Regional Area Health Report that's been written. Recommendations are already there. Samuel, it just takes the will to be able to do that.
Awesome.
The birthing unit that's already there at the moment, that had to be a PPP. The current government didn't fund it, didn't support it. And so that was unfortunately a bit of a blight and a shame that the birthing unit that's there now, my 4 kids were born at the maternity unit at the old Waitakere Hospital. And so we had to have a new unit there. So simple, it's build a bigger, better hospital. West Auckland, Te Atatū deserves it.
Awesome. It's an awesome answer. Can't argue with that. Phil, what's your thoughts on Waitakere Hospital, mate?
Yeah, it's true that that West Auckland deserves a new, modern, large tertiary hospital at the Lincoln Road site. The site can accommodate it. There's enough land there. West Auckland and the Northwest are growing fast. It's been a real shame, I think, that more services haven't come back to West Auckland the way that my fellow candidates have described it is correct. It's not a hospital that running a full suite of services for people who need healthcare, and there's nothing that West Aucklanders hate more than having to go over to North Shore Hospital or Auckland Hospital when they need hospital care. So I and my Labour colleagues in West Auckland, Deborah Russell, Carmel Cipollone, Kelvin Davis, Penny Henry, we are pushing for West Auckland to be the site of a new regional hospital. I think the case is really strong for that. I would point out that in last year's budget, Our DHB got $390 million, the biggest ever injection of funds in the DHB. So we are very committed to working with allies in West Auckland to get a proper regional hospital built there.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Phil. And lastly, Okusitino, what's your views on Watakari Hospital?
Yeah, like what the other candidates has said, Waitaki and West Auckland deserves a world-class hospital. And I think it comes down to investment priorities, knowing what to invest more in, what to invest less in, getting your priorities right. And I think health and our hospitals should be at the forefront of anything. And no doubt that investment priorities should be straight. And if health is at the forefront of that, and you've got the plan and the funding's there, go for it.
Awesome. So is that the first time I think we've had all four parties agree? No. So where's my world-class hospital? Guys, come on. All right. I want to see it next term. Right.
Sounds like you should get it either way.
Absolutely. No, that's an awesome answer. And I know, a lot of, it causes a lot of stress having to move to, go up to North Shore Hospital, Auckland Hospital. The ambulance rides aren't cheap, so if we can get a better service out west, let's do it, guys. Let's work as a team and do it. Right, something really close to my heart, as I've already mentioned, I am a ex-school teacher. Our electorate has 27 schools ranging from primary, intermediate and high school. We also have a tertiary provider in Laidlaw College. We have no more room to build more schools, but we are increasing our population, as has been the theme for tonight. And schools are struggling with capacity issues. Now, the preferred method seems to be dropping a new classroom in the middle of the field, taking up valuable space. And I know this because I was a teacher in one of those drop-in classrooms. If we're supporting building up, we've got these townhouses and we've got these apartments and we're building, 3, 4, 5 stories high. Why aren't we doing this with schools? Why are we taking away the kids' play area? Why are we taking away their green space? All right. So what is your plan for our 27 schools? How do we get them to build up and provide the learning environment for the kids of Te Atatū? Phil, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Samuel. Look, I often think that there's nothing that's more important for the future of our young people in West Auckland than really good quality schools that lift their horizons and give them the best possible opportunities. And our government is totally committed to building a really strong, fair and high-performing public education system in this country. And since we've been in government, we've rolled out a number of policies that are designed to take the stress off schools and so they can get on with teaching. So let me give you some examples. Our donations policy, which basically gives schools, and most of the schools in West Auckland have signed up to them, if they don't ask the parents for donations, they get a grant that is equivalent to $150 per student. That has led to tens of thousands of dollars extra going into many of our West Auckland schools. It means it takes the pressure off families, and it means that teachers don't have to spend their days organising fundraising events. As part of our COVID-19 recovery program, we have invested $400 million in school upgrades. Several tens of millions of dollars have gone to West Auckland schools, and that's being spent. They're using them to upgrade the buildings, to lay a new basketball court, to recarpet some classrooms, all number of different things. So it's improving the built environment in our schools, making them healthier and safer, and creating jobs in the local community.
Okay, Phil, yep. Sorry, because that is a minute and a half, but awesome that money's going in there. We still haven't tackled the overpopulation in schools. What are we doing for that? I'll give you
Well,
another 30
one of the
seconds.
things is that we've hired more teachers than ever before, and we've settled really
But the
significant.
teachers don't have classrooms. The teachers don't have classrooms, Phil. That's what I'm trying to get at. What are
I'm
we
not-
doing for the
I
overpopulation?
don't think that's true, Samuel. We are building capacity in the schools all the time. We have to pay our teachers and our school support staff properly, and we just did a living wage pay settlement for school support staff. So teacher aides. who
Perfect.
do invaluable
Absolutely.
work. So
Yep.
we are committed to building a strong and high-performing public education system, paying our teachers and our staff properly, and letting them get on with teaching.
Okay, cool. Look, Phil, awesome answer. I just don't feel that you've tackled that population growth. I have to say, but we're going to move on. Alfred, what's National going to do to deal with this population growth that we've got going on here? How are we going to give kids the space to learn in the schools?
Thank you. And I've also too previously been on the board of trustees for 20 years. All of the years of my 4 kids have gone through school. So it all hinges on a property development plan, which each school, independently under Tomorrow Schools, needs to have. So the first thing is that we've actually done that previously before in our 9 years. Dale Evans, principal of Te Atatū Intermediate, if you go down there, you'll see they actually built 2 stories up a property there. I've actually taught in there. So I think the fact is that it's building smart in the places that you're not actually say taking away their green spaces, but you're accommodating for some of the growth that's in there as well. I agree with you. I've seen some, and I've been a part of both in schools where we've just basically quick fixes, get a prefab on the ground, get it going. We say it's going to be temporary, but it doesn't work. The thing is, Samuel, this is a long-term issue because we've had leaky homes. What people may not be aware in the public at large is that we've got big issues around property in regards to the whole of the education, schooling right throughout the country. And we're talking billions of dollars here. There's a tip of an iceberg. There's things like, for instance, asbestos leaking from the old boilers. There's a whole host of issues that need to be dealt with. This is no simple answer, but I think what needs to be going back to is that, and I'm glad that Labor didn't tinker with the Tomorrow Schools to the point where some of those property plans are what will determine actually how they build. And I agree with you, Ministry of Education needs to ensure they work with the schools to develop a fit for purpose property plan that's there as well. And I think that's part of it. The last part of the answer is that we need to be open to PPPs. In other words, there are sometimes private companies and organizations that are willing to invest with groups. ACG is a classic example, which is just up where the old Waitemata Borough Council used to be, just off Central Park Drive. You know, when you've got companies that are willing to say, look, we can invest in the school to develop the property fit for purpose, then that works well. So I think there are those elements that can work to try and accommodate for those pressures around population growth.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Alfred. Brendon, top and education. Not that we're here to talk about education, but I love top education. Naomi Pocock, who I know through different education circles, is amazing policy. But we're not talking about education right now. We're more talking about the infrastructure of our schools.
Yeah.
How do we get our schools to build up and save space, save the green space for our students? How do we do that?
Yeah, well, education and the whole way of learning is changing, you know, with technology and a lot of things now with buildings and the whole infrastructure of schools. Look, as an architect, I've designed schools from Auckland to Queenstown. So I know quite a lot about modern learning environments and the way things are heading.
Yep.
What we need to do, one, is when you're designing schools, you need to be designed to be as flexible as possible because, as I said, you know, the whole learning pedagogy is changing. And so we've got the buildings have to be able to adapt with that. I've also lived and worked in Japan for years. Now, on schools there, I've worked in schools there, it is not uncommon to have multi-level schools. More than 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories. I've designed schools that are more than 1 level. it can be done, and it can be done really well. What we need to do is properly fund education, because it's one of the best places to actually put a heap of money, especially in early years. Now, a lot of the schools that are really struggling to find space, what they actually need to do is almost go back to square one. We need to actually have the funding to look at these schools and go, right, what we need to meet the growing population in Te Atatū is actually redevelop the whole school and actually start with, proper modern learning environments that can actually go more than one level, preserve as much green space as possible, and fit in a lot more kids. Some people are scared of the idea of big schools and big numbers, but you design it well, they work. That's the way to go. Don't muck around sticking more classrooms out on school fields and stuff like that. If a school is getting to that point, you need a new school.
No, I think you're absolutely right there, Brendon. If we can build up, and Phil's already got us the teachers, so thanks for that, Phil. We've got plenty of teachers, that's great, but we need the classrooms, but we need them to be going up and not onto the field. Okusitino, New Conservative, education or education infrastructure in the schools. How are we building up, mate?
Yeah, look, school buildings conditions, are clear indicators of investment or, underinvestment and opportunity. A concentration of old or, dilapidated schools in low social economic areas, for instance, stands in the way of giving students an equitable distribution of education. Doing nothing is not an option, but neither is knocking down every building and starting new. So rather than building new schools from the ground up, one of the most visible ways to quickly, address learning spaces is to focus on refresh of, micro environments, the furniture, technology, and interactions.
It's a loaded question, a loaded answer. I'm going to put you in the same category as Phil there. I'm not sure you answered the question, but good attempt. We'll move on. So talking about schools, our schools and teachers do an awesome job, right? Teaching and celebrating the cultures. And New Zealand is full of cultures. One thing that I loved at school was doing the different language weeks. So we have Te Reo language week. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, guys. We have a Niue language week, Samoan language week, Tongan language week. They're all coming up, and schools are so good at celebrating that. And while all language is important, is it time that we start looking whether Te Reo should be made compulsory? Te Reo is, of course, our national, our official language. I know as a teacher, I struggled to teach it, but is it something that should be compulsory at schools, whether fully compulsory, whether part-time compulsory? What are our thoughts on this? Alfred, I'm going to go with you first because I know that you do a lot of Paseka languages, particularly around prayer time and in the chamber. So what are your thoughts on languages? Is it time that Te Reo becomes compulsory in our schools?
Well, the thing is that you've actually said that correct, Samuel, that there are 3 official languages in New Zealand. It's English, Māori, Te Reo, and then also to sign language, actually. And I think the fact there's been a lot of effort, a lot of work that is done in that. I just want to say that before we get to the point of, so my point is that I don't think at the moment it needs to be compulsory. And the reasons I say that is that, look, when they had a report around the kohanga reo, and when obviously a good Westie, Sir Peter Sharples, reported on that, one of the things that wasn't happening, actually, the retention of the reo, of the language, needs to also start in the home. And so while it's important to be able to teach it, and a lot of people are doing it now, news reporters, everyone's actually making a better effort than what they were before. And so I think that actually what needs to be important, We need to keep encouraging it. We need to keep using it and getting people more confident with it. But right at this point in time, I don't think actually making it compulsory actually is the right way to go. Kiwis by nature don't like being told what to do, but I think they like being encouraged and supported along the way. And so every possible way that we can, we should encourage it in school and work and all the things that we're doing. We've come a long way. People around the world just love the fact is that our national anthem starts off in Te Reo.
Absolutely. Look, as a big sports fan,
was it compulsory? No.
No, look, as a sports fan that's travelled, around with NZ Sports, I love that our national anthem is led by Te Reo. It's fantastic. Okusitino, New Conservatives' view on Te Reo Māori being compulsory in schools. What's your thoughts?
Not compulsory. So yes, so
not compulsory. No.
Yes.
Okay.
So we believe that the Te Reo, with respect to tangata whenua and the land we are in, we believe it should not be compulsory. Reason being is we believe that authority should be given to students. We are a party of choice and opportunity, so that choice should be given to students. One, students should be able to get given the opportunity to select a specific subject, specifically talking about Te Reo, in which they believe they are strong in and that they can pass in and get good grades in. Two, Te Reo is a university-approved subject of being taught in high school, so we've got to look at it from that perspective at the same time. And I think a negative from making Te Reo a compulsory subject is, one, students will not have the passion or the eager to wake up in the morning. And speaking for myself, when I was back in school, knowing that I'm going to school to learn about a subject that I didn't have a say in, but in fact I had no choice because it was compulsory. A positive we can take from this, I think, is if it's not compulsory, if the choice is given to students, like I said, they will have the opportunity to select it or not. If they think they can do well in Māori, get good grades, pass of excellence, if so, and get those university credits.
Okay, so agreeing in the lines of national, that not compulsory just yet, or not compulsory in schools, should be learning at home, but giving them support if they're wanting to learn it.
So we can encourage it, but not enforce it.
Yep. It's fair call. Learning it at home though could be quite hard. But anyway, moving on. Brendon, Top's opinion on Te Reo in schools. Should it be compulsory?
Well, I mean, Top firstly, really want to honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and to the extent of really, wanting to have a constitution for New Zealand that embraces that whole Māori worldview. And in terms of language, look, learning Te Reo in school, especially in early years, is a great thing. And it is something that is really part of New Zealand. And even if you looked at it in a purely selfish view, it is a real point of difference for New Zealand. And learning a second language is something that most Kiwis just don't do. Growing up with a second language is a precursor to really opening your mind up to a lot of other things. So, look, I think it's really important. Sure, as people get older, we want to embrace the whole idea of choice. But look, having to learn a second language when you are young is a great thing, and it's it's something I really wish that that had been, that I had to do when I was young. All I grew up learning was being able to sing, Tu Te Ramona Iwi, and then living overseas when I got older and actually learning a second language properly did open my mind up. I think it is really, really important. It is Te Reo
important.
Is really important, and yes, we should.
Should, yes, compulsory. Cool. Cool. And lastly, Phil, you can see waiting patiently there.
Yep. The reo is a national treasure. It's a taonga, and it's our generation's responsibility to make sure that we pass it on to the next generation in better shape than we inherited it. And I want to see the teaching of the reo being universal. That is, any child in any school or educational establishment in New Zealand who wants to learn the reo can. And we have to invest in the teachers and the training and the infrastructure to do that, because as a country, we're falling a long way short at the moment. And when we've trained the teachers, then the decision comes, then the choices. Do we want to make it compulsory or not? But first, let's make it universal.
Awesome. Hey, candidates, thank you so much for your time. That is the questions that I have. I do realise that we've gone slightly over time. That's my bad timekeeping there. We do have we've got 2 sets of questions left. We've got 5 questions that have been prioritised from the online chat, and we also have some quick fire questions which won't take too long. Are you guys okay for another 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, fine.
Awesome, cool. I'm going to start with the live chat first. Okay, so the first one is from Rochelle. Hi all, I think a lot of talk has happened due to COVID affecting health and the economy. I do worry for the mental health of New Zealanders, and in particular West Aucklanders, who already have resource issues. And I wonder what your policies are to support an increasing need for mental health services. So just to repeat that question, what are your policies to support an increasing need for mental health services? I'm just going to go to my left. So we'll start with Okusitino. What are New Conservatives' policies in supporting increasing the need for mental health services?
Yeah, so first of all, New Conservative is committed to educating and empowering New Zealanders to take personal responsibility, for their physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health. We will do this by emphasizing the benefits of prevention and offering you more personal choice and control over your health care. We also believe health services can be delivered more fairly and efficiently, and will address these shortcomings in the health system. New Conservative will extend age-related government-funded health checks to early interventions in common health issues, make private health insurance tax deductible so it is more accessible to all New Zealanders. And I'll just give you one more point, investigate creating Kiwi health accounts. This will give people more choice and control over their healthcare. We believe prevention is important, and promoting healthy lifestyles would reduce the annual cost burdens on the health system.
Awesome, thanks. It sounds like you've really got that wraparound health there, which is great. Moving further to my left, Alfred, what is National's policies for increasing need of mental health services?
Yeah, so my wife is a child psychotherapist, counsellor and family therapist. I've had counselling for the last 30, whether I liked it or not. So I know what it means firsthand to actually have good mental health support. But the truth is that even in our time, in our 9 years, we could have done more. We didn't do enough. But even the current government made a big announcement. And like I said, my wife and others who work in the sector haven't seen the outworking of the budget that was made. So you can't just make promises and don't deliver on them. And so one thing that we've made it really clear is that what we will do is actually support those services. And the services need to go early. You talked about schools. So that actually there's a long tail around the issues of mental health that even in some of our young children. So in schools, we think that's important to start the screening there. So if you can pick up a whole variety of different conditions, mental health conditions earlier, you can treat it better, therefore you get a better outcome. So one of the key elements of our policy is screen, scan early, treat early. Early intervention is always really important. At the same time too, to the question that came, there are a lot of services that currently, even in West Auckland Te Atatū, that need support. I think the Laura Ferguson, for instance, for our disability that helped to deal with mental health, that was another service that was taken away, hasn't been replaced. So we've got services that need to desperately be supported both with funding, so that make it more accessible to our community as well.
Okay, thanks, Alfred. So early intervention was I think the key point from there. Phil, what is Labor doing for the increasing need of mental health services?
So you can see our policy by what we've done in the last year. From the budget last year, we invested $1.9 billion in mental health services nationwide. We are now training up the workforce around the country to provide community-based free frontline mental health services. And those services are being delivered right now in our communities in Henderson and Ranui as we speak.
Awesome. Hey, and you kept it under a minute. Thanks there, Phil. That's awesome. Brendon, TOP's policy on supporting the increasing need for mental health services in under a minute. Go.
Well, we need to inject a lot more money into real community-based, particularly youth mental support. And another thing that nobody's mentioned is one of the big drivers of our mental health issues actually does hark back to housing and the cost of living and poverty. And you put people under enough financial stress, you start getting bad mental health outcomes. One of top policies is actually introducing a universal basic income. Now, what that will do for everyone, from when they're leaving school, that puts $250 a week in everybody's pocket. No questions asked. We know how to pay for it. When people have got that sort of security, that is a hell of a leg up. And that takes an awful lot of burden off people. Look, don't underestimate the effect that poverty and lack of money has on mental health. COVID-19 and lockdowns has shown that. And just wait and see what it's going to be like in another year's time. We need to introduce systems that can deal with these challenges when they come up.
Sure.
Universal basic income, fixed housing, and there's your underlying issues for a lot of our mental health problems.
Cool. Thanks, Brendon. Next question comes from Trevor, and I think this is a really awesome question. Do any of the candidates have apartments or high-density housing being built next to their own homes? Let's go the other way around. We'll start with Brendon.
Right now, no, but I lived in Japan for about 5 years, and absolutely, yes, there I did.
Yep, and you're comfortable with it?
I am, but look, the main thing here is actually having a real proper urban development strategy, and having systems processes where people know what's happening around them and are not hit with nasty surprises. Things
absolutely.
need to be open and transparent. It's not at the moment under the current RMA, but let's make the whole process transparent, no nasty surprises, and then there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yep. Thanks, Brendon. Phil, any high density or apartment housing going around you or next door to you?
No, not next door, but I'll say this. If we don't allow our towns and cities to grow up, actually, our kids will never, ever be able to afford to live in this city or any other significant city in New Zealand for generations to come.
Not as a homeowner.
That's right. We have to build, or even when you have a shortage of housing, rents go up as well. We have to build more and build better. And density shouldn't be scary for people if we do it well and we practice good design And the world's not perfect. Sometimes there'll be buildings that people don't like. But if we don't build more housing, we'll never solve the affordability crisis, and our kids will never be able to live in the city.
Well said. Well said. Alfred, you said that you're on the Te Atatū Peninsula there.
Yeah, there's lots of apartment houses that are going up around. But look, I've had two constituent groups, one in Ranui, one in Te Atatū South, where there's development happening right next door to them. People are concerned. The thing is that, I agree with Brendon that you've got to learn to take your community with you. And if people don't know what the planning, what the rules look like, they get really upset when all of a sudden and you wouldn't believe it, a group in Ranui actually asked me to come. Well, they actually asked for all the other MPs to see if they'd come. I went in on site, met with them on the street, had a look at what they were concerned about. And I can see the fact is that while we think like, let's just have more apartments, more townhouses, people are actually uncertain and unsure. And also too, I think there are some equity issues around why is it that in some areas they have allowed it, but in others they don't. There's more questioning about it. More importantly, you have to take your people with you with a good plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really valid point there, Alfred. I know that under the current urban plan, unitary plan, the type of housing we can get away with here in Ranui, where I am, and go 2 k's up the road to Swanson, and what they can get away with is two totally different things. So thanks for hitting on that point there. Okusitino, have you got high density housing going around you?
No, but I think I'm along the same lines as Alfred and Brendon, having a well-thought urban strategy planned out and engaging, locals in the discussions rather than just hitting them with surprises in the end.
Yep. Cool. Last question from the floor. Henderson Town Centre really needs redevelopment. What are we going to do to help reinvigorate our town centre and support business there? Let's start with you, Phil. What are we going to do to reinvigorate Henderson?
So Panuku, our ratepayer-owned urban development agency, is leading this one, and they're doing great work. They've got a team working on it. They've got a number of different development sites in the Henderson Town Centre that are slated for development and for apartment complexes to be built. What we've seen in Henderson in recent years is a lot of the retail and commercial investment has moved out to New Lynn, to Lincoln Road, to Westgate. And I think that the answer for Henderson is housing, is to build more good quality urban developments in this town centre that bring people back in. That will stimulate the retail. It will make the streets safer because there'll be more people around. And our government, through Kainga Ora, the government's urban development agency and public housing agency, is working with Panuku on that plan for Henderson. But the key point is that Auckland Council and Panuku, and through our very good local government reps at council and local board level, are leading this one.
Oh, great. That's good to hear, Phil, because I do agree with Brooke, who sent in that question. Henderson is a bit of an eyesore to drive through these days. Alfred, what are you going to do to champion a better Henderson, mate?
Well, Brendon, you and I know, because it used to be the old Henderson Square back in the days when we grew up in Henderson. It was the place to go to. It was the latest. It was the brightest. It's lost all of that appeal, and part of it, we lost our champions that are local. And the thing is that I hear what Phil's saying about Panuku and the work that they're doing. I know that there's some consultation, but also too, I think that they're still lacking that sense of the bigger, wider parts of the community joining in to see what it could reinvent itself. Newland, you see the new development there. They've got intensity both in housing, which has then brought the Brick Street development that's there. People have talked about the fact is that, you think of Onehunga, Dressmart became a draw card. So there we've got a commercial hub that's happening there. And I think it's the same thing that could happen with West Auckland. My only concern is that, it's the disability saying nothing about us without us. I'm still hearing on the streets is that people are still feeling like they're not being engaged. They're not being talked with. That's both for local businesses and constituents and residents about what that overall plan is. Panuku haven't always done all the best things that are right. And so all I say is that do it with the community, not without them.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's really important. Brendon, what would you be able to champion? Because I understand Henderson is probably a little bit of a really local issue involving council and whatnot. But what would you be able to, as the MP of Te Atatū, what could you champion for Henderson?
Well, again, it might not come as any great surprise, but it's really coming up with a really good urban development strategy and something that can really engage the community. And of particular importance is more mixed-use developments. And this is where this is incorporating different sorts of retail or whatever with housing. It's not anything new. It's starting to happen in Auckland and around the country on fairly small scale so far, but that's what we need to really, really push in the likes of Henderson. You know, a couple of other people have mentioned it, but you get more people living in the heart and the hub of community centres. That's how you create really good urban environments. That's how you really enliven a town centre. So that's what we've got to do, but it's got to be done well, and people have got to see what the plan is. Everything's got to be very open and transparent. That's what we need to engage.
Cool. And lastly, Okusitino, if you were to win the MP seat, candidate seat for Te Atatū, how would you champion? How are you going to champion
along
Henderson?
the same lines as Brendon, you know, having a well-thought urban development plan that, you know, involves locals in discussion. At the end of the day, they're the ones that want to see change, hearing what they want change, and then your job to make that happen.
Awesome. All right, team, I know it's been a long night. I thank you for sticking with me. To our audience that is still there, so you guys must have been giving out some good stuff. We are coming to the end. We are coming to the 2 hour mark. We have 4 minutes, and there's 4 of you. So in 1 minute, tell me why I should vote for you. Let's start with Okusitino.
Oh, wow. Hey, look, I bring generational change. I believe that's where the New Zealand politics is facing now. We can see it in the Labour Party. See Jacinda, everyone's voting for that beautiful, smiley young face. That's what I bring, generational change. I'm passionate about investing in future generations, defending democracy, defending free speech. Your voice is what I want to hear.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time, Okusitino. Alfred, why should I vote for you in 1 minute?
I'm a true blue Westie. I schooled here, grew up here, studied here, got married here. In fact, my wife and I got married at the old Te Atatū Rugby Club. All my kids were born at the Waitakere Hospital. I know this place. I'm a part of the pioneering history. So I'm a true blue Westie. The heart of hearts is to serve our community. I know it well. I'm a talker, a doer. I get out there and champion the things that are really important. I walk alongside of the people. My heart is to serve the people, this place that makes West Auckland what it is. Proud to be a Westie and proud to serve our community.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Alfred. I really appreciate your time tonight. Brendon, why I should give you my vote to be the champion of Te Atatū? In 1 minute, go.
Well, a lot of things we've talked about tonight really come down to housing and urban development. Now, I've spent most of my working life in architecture and urban design, and as part of that, I've gained a fairly good inherent understanding of what sustainability is, not just for houses, but for future generations. Now, if COVID-19 has shown us one thing, yes, we can respond quite well as a team when we've got a bit of decent leadership and strategy designed by experts. But on the long term, really big issues facing Te Atatū and New Zealand as a whole, we are not winning, not for ourselves and not for future generations, whether it's our having the most unaffordable housing in the world, a really imbalanced tax system that's driving our inequality, punitive welfare system trapping people in poverty, degrading environment and loss of biodiversity. All of these things, are terrible issues, and we are handing all of our children and grandchildren a giant hospital pass. I was going to say shit sandwich, but look, if we want to be a real winning team, we need to embrace a much better worldview, and that means getting much better coordinated set of policy and people in government. We can't leave that change to chance. Just look for that.
Awesome. Brendon, I said there's no more questions. Just one for Brendon really quickly. I think this is an important one because you are a new party, or reasonably new party. Has TOP declared who they're willing to work with?
Yes, we have. We're willing to work with anybody because, look, if you really want to get good progressive policy across the line, you have to be prepared to work with anybody to have that bargaining power. That's what it is. That is how MMP is supposed to work. Cool.
So you're willing to work with any party in government. Thanks for that. And just with NCP as well, Okusitino, I'm pretty sure you guys have declared that you would work with national and only national. Just correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, look, we've made no prejudgments. At the moment, what we'll focus on is working hard for every vote that's out there.
Awesome, thank you. And Phil, the incumbent, the 3-time champion of Te Atatū, why would I give you my vote in October? 1 minute, go.
As local MP, I fight for the things that West Auckland needs, whether it's jobs, whether it's transport, housing, apprenticeships. As Minister of Transport, I was able to make sure that West Auckland got its fair share of the shovel-ready projects, $100 million for buses on the Northwestern Motorway, $35 million to build the Twyford shared walking and cycling pathway between New Lynn and Te Atatū.
Wait, sorry, Phil. Labour's announced that they're funding that? Or sorry, the government has announced that they're funding that? Yes. Oh, fantastic. Oh, wow. Okay, sorry, I missed that announcement. Sorry, go on.
As Minister for Economic Development, I've worked hard to get the big international studios to come and film the likes of Amazon's Lord of the Rings TV series in New Zealand. It's being filmed in West Auckland, creating hundreds of jobs for West Aucklanders. And apprenticeships, we've put up $1.9 billion to support businesses to keep their apprentices on during the COVID crisis and make apprenticeships free in construction, amongst other industries, which is so important in West Auckland. So look, in our COVID recovery program, 7,000 businesses in West Auckland have borrowed, small businesses have borrowed upwards of $110 million over the last couple of months. We've invested massively in supporting businesses and supporting jobs. So I'm asking for
60 seconds, Phil.
I'm asking for your party vote so that Jacinda Ardern can continue to lead the country through COVID-19, and Phil Twyford for Te Atatū, so West Auckland's got a cabinet minister at the table ready to fight for the things that West Auckland needs.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for your time, Phil. Hey guys, thank you so much for giving your time to be here tonight and taking the time to answer the questions about your electorate. I know that electorate seats now are very watered down, and we want to bring that championship back to what an electorate MP is. And I'm so happy to see that we've got 4 people here fighting to be the champion of Te Atatū. No matter the outcome, I wish you all the success in the upcoming election. If it goes your way, massive congratulations. I look forward to working with you. If it doesn't, I really hope that you continue to champion Te Atatū. Thanks to everyone that's tuned in tonight. This has been recorded. It will be out there. We'll make sure that it gets shared out, and we'll make sure that the candidates also get it and they can share it within their respective groups. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks, Samuel.
Thank you, Samuel.